Hello students, this is Shweta Roy. This video is for chapter 2 History Part 2 Kings and Kingdoms in Medieval Period. In this video we are going to discuss about the Chahamanas or Chauhans, the Turkish invasions. In that we have Mahmud of Ghazni and Mahmud Ghori. Now administration in the kingdoms, revenue collection, uses of revenue, prasastis, critical writings, land grants, and after that we have the Cholas. So we are going to discuss these topics in the video. So now we will discuss about the Chahamanas or Chauhans. Actually, the Chahamanas were later known as Chauhans, and this dynasty was found by Gokut in 11th century AD. Now the Chauhans ruled over the region around Delhi and Ajmer. Prithviraj III, who ruled from AD 1686 to 1692, was the greatest ruler of this dynasty. He acceded the throne of Ajmer at the age of 14. When he was of 14 years of age, he acceded the throne of Ajmer and made many conquests. Now he conquered many small states of Rajasthan and Bundelkhand. Now his achievements and exploits have been described by his court poet Chand Bardai in his famous book Prithviraj Raso. So Prithviraj Raso was a biography of Prithviraj III, which was written by Chand Bardai. Now in AD 1191, he defeated the Afghan ruler Sultan Muhammad Ghori in the first battle of Tarain. But in second battle of Tarain in AD 1192, he lost to him. So in AD 1191, he defeated the Muhammad Ghori, but in AD 1192, he was defeated by Mahmud Ghori. This defeat resulted in the foundation of Muslim rule in India. Also, the Rajputs were fighting with each other for supremacy. Now, these battles made them weak, and that is why they could neither defend themselves individually nor unite against the Turkish invasions. From here the Turkish invasion started, and the first was Mahmud of Ghazni from AD 997 to 1030. Now first of these invaders were Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni from Afghanistan, who ruled from AD 997 to 1030, and he extended his control over parts of Central Asia, Iran, and northwest parts of subcontinent. Now, in order to bring back wealth and build a large army, he raided the Indian subcontinent 17 times between AD 1000 and 1027. He mainly attacked the temple towns in northern India, and this was because he had heard that there are much gold and jewelry kept in the big temples of India, and that was the reason he attacked the temple towns in northern India. Now, destroying temples had another advantages. He obtained religious merit by destroying images. That is why he called idol breaker. So he destroyed the temples and took away gold and jewelry. Some of of his famous campaign were against Nagarkot, Thaneshwar, Mathura and Kannauj. These were some of the places which was again and again invaded by Mahmud of Ghazni. His 17th invasion against the temple of Somnath in Gujarat was most disastrous one, and he died in AD 1030, and after that the people of northern India felt relieved. This Mahmud of Ghazni was very interested to know about India and the condition of its people. So in one of his campaigns, Mahmud was accompanied by a great Persian scholar, Al-Biruni. Now this Al-Biruni lived in India for many years, and he learned Sanskrit and wrote an excellent book on India. The name was Kitabul Hind. After this Mahmud Ghazni, Mahmud Ghori came, and he was in between AD 1175 to 1206. His full name was Sihabuddin Muhammad Ghori, and he was ruler of a small kingdom in Afghanistan. Now he invaded India not just to plunder its wealth, but also to establish Muslim rule over the India. But if we look into the Mahmud of Ghazni, he invaded India for wealth and to set up his large army, and for that he wanted wealth, and for that he invaded India 17 times. But here the Mahmud Ghori not only wanted to invade India for wealth, but also he wanted to establish Muslim rule. Now Prithviraj Chauhan was a contemporary with Ghori. In AD 1191, Prithviraj Chauhan defeated Mahmud Ghori in battle of the first battle of Tarai. In this battle, Ghori had to flee from the battlefield with bleeding wounds. But very next year, in AD 1192, he defeated Prithviraj in the second battle of Tarai. Now Prithviraj was captured and ultimately executed. Now this defeat is regarded as a turning point in history, Indian history, because it resulted in the foundation of Turkish rule in India. From here, the Turkish rule started in India. In AD 1206, Mahmud Ghori was murdered, and his territory in northern India was left under the control of his general Qutbuddin Aibak. Now we have administration in the kingdoms. The kings had supreme power. Also they adopted great titles of Maharaja Adhiraj, Tribhuvan Chakravartin. Kings also shared power with their samantas, as well as with associations of peasants, traders and brahmins. Now high posts in the army were filled by the people from influential families, which has some reputation, and close relatives of the kings. The positions were often hereditary. Now we have revenue collection. So the producers who were peasants, artisans, cattle keepers had to surrender part of their produce as tax. Sometimes a part of produce was claimed as rent because land was the property of lord. Also revenue was collected from traders. There was expansion of trade across the sea and the frontiers of kingdoms, and thus the revenue collection was broad based. Now, generally, people from the influential families and close relatives of the king collected revenue for king. These positions were often hereditary. That means from one, uh, like the son will be take the position after the death of the father. Now, where the revenue were used? So they were used to finance the king's establishment, to construct temples and forts, to fight wars. Kings accepted that wars would lead to the acquisition of wealth in form of gold, jewelry, land, as well as traded routes. Now we have prashastis. Now prashastis were often written in praise of the king. To praise the king, prashastis were written. And they mentioned the king as valiant, victorious warrior, etc. They described the king's achievements. These prashastis were composed by learned Brahmins. Then we had critical writings. Now, in contrast to the writers of prashastis, a 12th century author named Kalhana was often critical about rulers and their policies. In prashastis, the kings were praised, but here it was the critical writings. That means the poet will be critical about the rulers and the policies. Now, Kalhana composed a long Sanskrit poem that contains a history of the kings of Kashmir. And he took the help of a variety of sources such as inscriptions, documents, earlier histories, eyewitness accounts, etc. to complete his work. Now there were land grants. So kings often used to reward Brahmins by grant of land, and the grants were recorded on copper plates. Now these plates were given to those who received the land. That means the Brahman who received the land, that will get this copper plates, which is a kind of inscription. Now person who received the land could collect taxes from it. That means if a Brahman is receiving the land, the tax of the land can be collected by the Brahman. Now then we have the Cholas, who were the most prominent dynasty of the South Indian plains, and they were contemporary of Chalukyas, the Pallavas, the Pandavas and the Rashtrakutas. These Cholas earlier were the subordinate to the Pallava kings, who were of Kanchipuram. Now Vijayalaya Chola was related to the ancient ruling family of Cholas, and he belonged to Urayur and had captured the Kaveri Delta region from Mutterayar in the middle of the 9th century. The new dynasty was founded by him, who ruled from AD 846 to 871. Now Vijayalaya built the town of Thanjavur and made it the capital of his kingdom. He also built a temple for goddess Nishumdusni. Now Raja Raj I, who ruled from AD 985 to 1016, and Rajendra Chola from AD 1016 to 1044. Now they conquered the neighboring kingdoms and annexed the Pandayan and Pallava territories that were to the south and north of the Chola Empire. Now Raja Raj I is considered the most powerful ruler of Chola dynasty. He also reorganized the administration of the empire. Now Rajendra I continued his policies and raided the Ganga Valley, Sri Lanka, and countries of Southeast Asia. So he developed a powerful navy for these expeditions. Now the arc and architecture of the Cholas. So they had made great contribution in arc and architecture. They built the temples, uh, which was having the distinction from North Indian style. Also, they put their temples in enclosed courtyards. The temples were having huge gateways, which were called gopurams. Now, the image of the deity was placed inside the sanctum sanctorum. The best example of their temple can be seen in Thanjavur or Gangai Konda Cholapuram. Now they were built by Raja Raj and Rajendra Chola. They are architectural marvels. Also, the Cholas were best known for their metal images and stone sculptures. The South Indian style of temple architecture is best represented by the Pandyan rulers. The North Indian style were uh, taken by the Cholas, and the South Indian style was built by the Pandyan rulers, and they ruled between the 7th to 13th century AD. The Meenakshi temple at Madurai was built by the Pandyan rulers. Now around the Chola temples, a visual image of Natarajan, which was made in bronze, was found in 10th century AD. Now it continues to be reproduced in metal, stone, and other materials right up to the present time. From that time it started, but we can find it till now. Also, the Chola Nataraja was often said to be the supreme statement of Hindu art. The temples were cultural centers and centers of craft productions. They were given devdan or land grants by the members of the royal families. These lands were provided with irrigation systems and were very productive. The produce of the land went into maintaining the bronze image of the temples and to specialists who worked at the temple. So whatever was produced by the land, that was used in the maintaining of the bronze images of temples and the person who were working over there. Now the settlements around the temple also consist of garland makers, cooks, sweepers, musicians, dancers and others. So the South Indian temples were not only places of worship but also served as cultural centers and hub of economic and social activities. Now Cholas become very powerful on account of trade and agricultural prosperity. They were using their money to initiate agricultural reforms, and by that these agricultural reforms they were building themselves strong on the basis of economy. Also they were using the Kaveri river for irrigation. They were pulling many of the branches from the Kaveri before it is going and meeting in Bay of Bengal. They were bringing many of the small channels from the river, and these small channels were irrigating the land, and thus the lands were very fertile. And as they were fertile, the produce, agricultural produce was more, and the it was responsible for the agricultural prosperity of the region. Rice was cultivated, and beside the rice, many other crops were also cultivated. Also, the forests were cleared in some of the regions for agricultural purpose. Some of the embankment were built to prevent floods in the region. Canals were also constructed for irrigating the lands. Now, after with long period of sunshine, two agricultural crops in a year had become possible in some area. So this was the agricultural prosperity of the Chola. Now many of the methods were used for irrigation, like building canals, wells, tanks. So many of the methods were used for irrigation. Also, when irrigation is done, the work required planning, organized labors and resources, maintenance of the work, decisions on sharing water, and this all was done with the association or officers who were appointed by the rulers and leaders of the area. Now this agrarian reforms of Chola influenced the irrigation in other countries of Southeast Asia. Also, the enterprising farmers grew spices and sandalwood for export to China and some other Southeast Asian countries. Now, remains of a tank belonging to some members of Manigramam guild have also been found. From China, they imported ceramic and glassware. The Cholas had also sent an emissary to China in AD 1077 to further these trading contacts. Some historians have found evidence of trade with Arabian ware from Cholas imported horses.